It's the 15th of January and we're back at Seatown again. Now I appreciate this is the third Seatown video in probably as many weeks, but today we have a mission. Interesting actually, the course of this river's carved a different channel to where it used to be. It used to come out over that way and it's now coming round over this way. It still soaks into the gravel before it gets to the sea. Anyway, as I say, we have a mission today. We're here, we're going to get past those rocks at the end of the cove there. Over there, just under the fog, you can see Lyme Regis. There has been fog this morning, but it's lifted. In fact, you can see how it's lifted. You can see that there's a bright line on the horizon. In fact, the sun is shining over there. But as I say, today our objective is to get past those rocks at the end of the underneath Golden Cap here and get round the corner. There's a little cove around the corner, which I'm told is good for fossils. So no doggo with us today because we're going to be clambering over rocks. But also I'm going to turn the camera off until we get down to the end now, unless we find something interesting on the way, because it's saving battery for when we get round the corner. It's just me and Jenny, and appropriate attire is worn today. Hopefully this is my lucky fossil shirt. Actually, I have found good fossils when I've worn this shirt. I'm not normally superstitious about things like that, but I'll take luck if it happens. Okay, here's an interesting find. It's not a fossil. We found a 2p piece on the beach here. Oh, there's a piece of sea glass there as well. I'll have that. Found a 2p coin, and look how battered this 2p coin is from just being here in the surf. Now, I said I wasn't going to use the camera much on the outbound, but it's very different since we were last here, which was Christmas Day, literally just 2 weeks ago. This whole surface of the beach here has been really scoured, and it's scoured down to this hard gravel and hard sand and clay. So the beach has definitely really been turned over. We are here on the falling tide today, and that's important. It's important to make sure, especially when you're visiting a beach which has got big cliffs and the sea comes up right against them, to make sure that you're not trapped by the tide. So we are here on the falling tide. We've got about another hour and a half until it gets to low tide, and they're big tides today, which means a lot of the beach will be exposed. But it also does mean when the tide comes in, it's going to come in all the way. So yep, timing our visit to make sure that we don't get cut off by the tide. So getting close to the end of the beach now. This is Golden Cap here, and yep, those are the rocks we need to traverse this morning. Haven't actually found any fossils yet. Usually walking along here we would pick up at least one or two little pieces of ammonite. I have been looking, but nothing yet. And I believe we have the beach to ourselves. There is one other set of footprints on the beach here, but it's a set of footprints that comes out in one direction, and I saw the same footprints going back the other direction. So I think we have the place to ourselves this morning. So this is the point where we normally kind of potter around a bit and then turn around, but not today. It's interesting, there is more gravel up this end of the beach. The beach has really been reshaped by the weather, by the conditions, the elements. It seems like a lot of the gravel has washed up to this end of the beach, which is kind of the opposite direction from the normal longshore drift. So it may well be that some storms have created unusual anomalous currents and washed it back the other way. But there is deeper gravel at this end of the beach than we're normally used to seeing, because normally we'd be walking on a shale bed here. Here's a piece of fossil, but I don't think it's going to be worth collecting. That is shaped like that because that's the outer whorl of an ammonite, but it's so worn down I don't think it's worth actually having that. And it was on these gravels here where I found my best ammonite specimen that I gave away, which is part of the reason we're here today, is to try to replace that. So here's another one. So this is from the outer wall of an ammonite. You can see the patterning there of the shell, but again, I just don't think that's worth carrying home if it wasn't so worn down. So a specimen like that might be worth taking home. I think that's worth keeping because it's nicely defined, it's not too worn down, obviously not complete, but yeah, a piece like this, I'll chuck it up the beach so that other people might find it if they want to, but it's not worth taking home. I'm just going to go and show it to Jenny. It's going to take a little bit of a moment to figure out our best way across these rocks. If we go too far down, it's really big rocks and there's big gaps in between them, and we still got the sea to contend with. If we go too far up, all of this clay that's washed out and tumbled out of the cliff face will stick to our boots. So I think it's going to be find the middle ground. In amongst all of these rocks is actually not a bad place to look for fossils, because there's a little bit less wear and tear from the surf. And so as we go across these, you know, some of these rocks, they look like rocks, but they're really not much more than hardened clay. But yeah, we'll go across here, taking it very easy, and we will find, yeah, so that looks like rocks there, but that's not, that's clay. So just got to be careful what we tread on. Right, well, if I take one more step, that's the furthest I've ever been along this beach. And yeah, we are just going to have to watch it because it's just so much sticky stuff. But there does appear to be a route through. I'm just going to look at all the small stuff that's down here really, just to see what else there might be in amongst the rocks. Oh, that's sticky clay. Yeah, so look, that looks like a rock, doesn't it? But it's not, it's just a chunk of clay. Down here is a good place to look, because all of this stuff is iron pyrite nodules. And iron pyrite is a very frequent infill material for ammonite fossils in this place, in this location. Well, all along this coast actually, but particularly here. We are not quite at Charmouth, we're still at Seatown, but if we go around this corner and then round the next corner, we'd be on the end of Charmouth Beach. Impressed by the size of that limpet. Absolute unit. It is a tumble of slippery rocks and soft clay. Not sure I'd really recommend coming across here. It's so I'm going across on the rocks that have got rough edges here, trying to keep onto the bits that are actually grippy. Jenny's taking the lower route, and I don't know, how are you getting on over there?
All right.
Okay, well I'm going to head down here and cross back over there to meet her, I think. You may have noticed Jenny's wearing the hat that I bought in Bridport. I initially bought it for myself, but whilst I do like the colours and I don't care what people think, we found that it was just a little bit tight on my bulbous head, so it's more of a fit for Jenny. So Jenny has the colourful hat now. Now, of course, one thing we've got to remember here is we have to come back across here. So if we get to a point where we're struggling to make headway, we should consider whether that is the point to turn around. Oh, sticky clay. And of course, once you've got clay stuck on the bottom of your boots, it makes them that much more slippery. So there's quite a lot of interesting formations in this material. This is the iron pyrite infill. You sometimes find kind of pillowy nodules of it, and sometimes bits like this that almost look like crystals. Probably are crystals. Iron pyrite does some really quite spectacular things for all its kind of fairly humble and ordinary mineral composition. It produces crystals that continually surprise the internet. You can get crystals that are perfect cubes. One of my favourite things to do when I see a video about pyrite crystals, especially the cubic ones, is to have a look at the comments, especially on platforms like Instagram and Facebook and so on. There's always a bunch of people disbelieving that it's even real and claiming that you put it there. I'm glad I don't make videos about finding gemstones, because it seems like half the world doesn't actually understand that some gemstones come out of the ground already faceted by nature of their crystal lattice. Yeah, I'm glad I don't post videos about that, because literally half of the comments on the internet are, it's fake, you put that there. So yeah, Jenny's found what they call a death plate, which is where a whole load of different things have died. So we've got a belemnite there, and there's a shell there that looks a bit like a cockle shell but could be a brachiopod. Yeah, plenty more belemnites in there. It will be worth just having a scout in the gravels up here. I mean, it would also be worth having a rummage in the gravels here, but I don't think I really want to be doing that today. I'm going to just have a look and see if we can find things that are sitting on the surface waiting to be found, and I will leave the rummaging to more determined and intrepid fossil hunters than myself. Yeah, so there's the end of a really big, quite big belemnite there. Another one embedded in the rock there.
Oh, ammonites.
Oh yeah, that's actually quite a nice ammonite, but it's still very much stuck in the matrix.
Yeah, one there, another one there.
So actually here might not be a bad place to look for specimens that have already weathered out.
Oh yes, another one there.
So down here in this finer stuff, Jenny's still looking over there. Down here in this finer stuff, in amongst the big rocks, there's the first belemnite that's probably worth taking home. I've got quite a lot of those in my collection already, but I will take it. I might leave it for someone else to have. There's another one down there. Oh no, that's a section of a crinoid stem, I think. Quite a big one. Yeah, so there are going to be some things to find down here. There are fossils that have weathered out, and they are also durable enough to last a good few tides. That might be a piece of ammonite there. It looks like, yeah, that's a section of ammonite. You can kind of see it, there's a periodicity to those ridges. Not going to take that. And actually this is interesting, not a fossil, but actually something that's quite beautiful. A top shell with some of the nacre, the mother of pearl material, exposed. Still alive actually, so you can see the, oh no it's not, no it's empty. I thought I could see the little operculum, the doorway that they shut to protect themselves from predators and the elements, and drying out. Right, I think we've got one more kind of ridge of rocks to get over, and then we get to this bay that I saw on Google Maps, which may not be like it looks on Google Maps in reality. We've got plenty of time before the tide still turns, so I'm mindful of that too. But yeah, I think I want to get over there. There's actually a bit of a beach there, and there's a bit of a beach here, and a rather well worn but quite pretty belemnite. I'll take that. Some of these fossils, the more common ones, I will probably just deposit in a pile somewhere on the wall way back at the car park, so that kids can find them. There's a piece of what I think must be a crinoid stem. It looks too long to be a belemnite. And I never found crinoid heads fossilised here, but apparently you can. You do sometimes find them here. But yeah, oh, this is a very good example of a death plate here. So look at all these belemnites and crinoid stems. Actually, some of them that I thought were crinoid stems probably are just very long and slender belemnites, but there's also some bivalve shells. Another one there. There are ammonites, but not very good condition. Have a look at this, Jenny. Yeah. So every time the tide comes in and wears off a bit of this rock, some of these fossils that are currently embedded, you can see this one's almost uncovered now. I'm not going to try and chip that out because you end up breaking them. But every time the tide comes in, it does a little bit of that excavation for you. And so this is the place to look for fossils that are lying loose just on the sand. Look at that.
Yeah, some of them are really big.
Yeah. And that's a piece of, there's an ammonite there, that's just the whirl of an ammonite, but it's quite distorted. So you've got to be super careful here, because we are actually walking across rocks that would be fully submerged at high tide, hence seaweed. But there is a bit of a beach up here, so we're going to try and get up to there and then find out what the foreshore looks like on this beach. And again, massive, huge limpet shells, and probably really, really strong, because this bit of coast here gets very well battered when the tide comes in. And even things like there's a whelk shell there, and there's a winkle, but even these are really robust, big specimens. Put him back where he belongs. But we're not here to look at wildlife, although it is always interesting. We are here to find fossils. Lots of winkles here on the rocks. Edible shellfish, actually. You can collect these and boil them and pick them out of the shells with a pin. It's a thing people used to do at the seaside. I've done it myself actually a few times. There's really not much in them. They taste good, but it's just like a little piece of seafood flavoured snot in there. So, well, I mean, it's interesting just to be here, because this is a bit of the beach we've never managed to get to before. It is really treacherous, actually, so if you're watching this and thinking, oh, I could go there, then do be warned. This is treacherous. Of course, you may be more sure-footed than me. You may be better equipped than me. But you certainly don't want to be lesser in either of those two factors. And watch out for the tides. Always check the tides when coming here, because the tide will come in as far as that mud there, and then there's really no way back apart from to clamber across that slumped undercliff. Right, I'm going to have a look down here because there's lots of pyrite nodules here, and the fact that all the pyrite is together probably means that some sifting process has happened here, so there could be pyrite fossils here. See, there's another example, an interesting example of a pyrite formation. A really interesting looking thing there. You know, you might be tempted to think that was the inside of a limpet shell or something that's been infilled, but more than likely that's just the result of kind of bubbling and dripping and various mechanical processes that would have happened when this pyrite nodule was forming in the clay. So that's interesting. That's very interesting. So that's barnacles, I think. There's a little barnacles, and they've been knocked off or something. They're not inhabited, they're dead, but they're still stuck together on a little piece of just their kind of base material. We made it to the beach. This is the little cove right underneath the end of Golden Cap. Not much of a beach. Ooh, that's clay, that's mud.
Yeah, very sticky.
Yeah, so it is just this grey Kimmeridge clay and some cobbles on top. We'll stay on the cobbles for the moment until we get to that gravelly bit over there, I think. But yeah, very sticky if you walk on the flat bits. Kind of a disappointing sight there. Plastic waste. I'm afraid we are too far away from the car park for me to carry that back and dispose of it. Well, there is an ammonite, quite well worn, but clearly that's a piece of an ammonite, and it's the kind of hard rock fossil ammonites that we are going to be looking for on this beach, as well as other things. There might be ichthyosaur bones here as well, and sometimes I think we find turtles and similar things as well. That's a piece of an ammonite as well. You can see still traces of the kind of segments inside of there. So this is the right place to be looking, but I'm getting hungry, so I think we're going to find a nice dryish looking rock and sit down and have a spot of lunch. Here's a specimen worth talking about. That's a piece of crinoid stem, and you can just about see the traces of segments in there. Not keeping that because it's not that great a specimen, but it's an interesting one to look at. So yeah, the gravel's here, same kind of fossils as back round the corner at Seatown, but of course not many people come here. Some people might come across this head here from Charmouth. So here we are, a little beach all to ourselves. A private secluded cove, not exactly tropical. And lunch, what could be better than sausage in a bun? Well, 2 sausages in 2 buns, that could be better. So I'll have a little wander along the foreshore here. Ah, a piece of sea glass. That's my 3rd piece of sea glass today. And then I think I might have a wander up there and have a look just underneath the cliffs, being very mindful that these cliffs are prone to falling down, so might not go under that really tall, steep, overhanging bit, but maybe over there we might have a look. And the thing to do also is have a look in the edges here as well, because anything that's going to travel along the beach, anything that's going to be transported by the waves in one direction or another, will end up at one end or the other. As always, let me know if you spot something that the camera sees where my eyes are not looking. Yeah, that's possibly a piece of an ammonite, but there's no definition to it apart from the shape. But that's a piece of pyrite. But yeah, just the shape of that makes me think that's probably an infill for and ammonite, but not worth collecting. Need to be a little bit thoughtful about staying here for very long. I think maybe not, especially as the sun is drying that out now, so the minerals in that cliff will be losing cohesion. Just have a wander down here and look in these gravels. If you do spot anything that I've missed, I'm bearing in mind that the camera is not always looking in the same direction as my eyes, comment, let me know in the comments. A timestamp is always helpful, and then everyone can enjoy it. Lots of pyrite nodules, nothing jumps out at me as being a fossil. Camera off until we find something. Well, there is something. Another section of ammonite. Nice condition, unfortunately incomplete. I will collect that though. I'm hoping to find something like this, but a complete specimen. Of course, we're not the only people to come along here and pick this beach, so you know, I'd be very lucky to find a complete intact, or even partially, you know, just with several whorls intact. There's another piece there. Not quite so good, but I will take it for now. My heart did a little jump just then, but it was a false alarm. This is a pyrite nodule, and again showing that very strange form that you sometimes get, but almost certainly that's just the result of bubble shaped voids, things dripping and seeping in the rocks. We will just have a little scout along here, like I say, not directly underneath that bit which is overhanging, but we'll have a little scout along here because there might be something that's tumbled out just recently. If you see anything, shout really loud. I might hear it. I think we're in the right place. So all of this stuff in the cliffs here tumbles down. The softer stuff washes away and gets carried away as silt. The harder stuff stays a bit longer, but most of this cliff is just kind of compacted mudstones. And we're looking at there what was probably the bed of an ancient sea that has not seen the light of day for millions and millions of years until I just kicked this thing open. But yeah, half cemented sedimentary rocks here, not really actually quite rocks, and I'm not going to sit here and chisel these apart. The people that do that do actually find fossils in there. There's a limpet shell, but it's not my thing to go digging away in the cliffs and bashing at the rocks. Altogether too much effort. I will just mention this rock here though, because this highlights a potential danger, because look at this piece of yellowish sandstone came from way up the top there somewhere, and so that has tumbled down. It's jumped over here, it's found its way down here, so big pieces like that do fall down, and you don't want to be underneath when that happens. It's just like I say, oh, that's worth taking home, I think. It is just a bit depressing. If I might see if I can hike that bit out. I'll put that in a bag or something, put it in my rucksack and hike that bit out, because there is just a bit more plastic waste here. I think probably where people don't come here very often, this bit doesn't get cleared so much, and it's a little kind of bywater here, so it probably just collects stuff over a long period of time. But I think that bit of plastic rope here, I will see if I can disentangle it from this branch. That in itself could be a puzzle. I'll try and hike that out, I think, and put it in the bin back at the car park. Oh, 2 hands anyway. Ouch, that's thorny. Right, 2 hands and I'll get that free. It's knotted itself quite thoroughly around that branch. However, I came prepared. Now, Jenny's found a nice segment there. I found a few more bits up by the cliff. Nothing whole though, or nothing with any complete, complete rings, which is what I was hoping to find, but never mind. I mean, to be honest, it's such a nice day now. Now the fog has lifted, we can see the sunshine. We've got the whole beach to ourselves. You know, it's not the nicest beach in the world, I'm sure, by many standards, but it's nice to be here. Have a little walk out across the rocks here, being very careful not to walk on this sand. Actually, this sand's fairly firm now. It was a bit sinky when we first got here because it was still quite hydrated, but I'll just have a little wander around here, see if there's anything interesting to see on the rocks and in amongst these pebbles here. We are now at the precise moment where the tide is turning, so from here on the tide will be coming back in, and that means we need to be thinking about not being here. We've got like an hour and a half before it really becomes perilous to try to get back round that headland, but we're not going to cut anything fine, so we'll spend another few minutes here on the beach wandering around in hope of finding something a little bit more of a complete specimen, and then head back. You can see how the rocks here are all covered with a fine layer of this black mud, and that's obviously the clay that's washing out of these cliffs. But yeah, it's not been the fossil beach that I might have hoped it would be. I suppose, I don't know, maybe if we were underneath, in front of that slump over there, that's fallen out of these cliffs here, maybe on the other side of that, who knows. Or it might be that I'm not very good at looking. I imagine though, if we were to have a look in some rock crevices and things like that, if we had the means to look underneath, for example under that flat rock there, which is perched on top of some other rocks, I bet you could find some coastal foraging here, maybe like crabs, lobsters, those sorts of things. So making our way back across now, keeping eyes peeled for loose fossils as before. It's a little bit easier going back actually, because these rocks have had a chance to dry out a bit more and they're not quite as slippy as they were, he says, and then slips. Still got to watch it though, because you know, rock, 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 not rock. And I am not walking across that.
Yeah. That's where the rocks are.
Actually, we should have been down there, shouldn't we, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you could very easily break an ankle here. In this little sheltered spot here, lots and lots of pieces of belemnite shell, just all over the place. All of these little cylindrical pieces here are bits of belemnite. Can't see anything else though. Just found that. And again, you can see there's a kind of periodic ridges on it. Undoubtedly a piece of ammonite. That was just down here. I'm not going to keep that though. So the sun has come out, the tide is down, and that has drawn a few people to the beach. So we're no longer the only people on the beach here. Come back round to Seatown Beach over here and make our way across there. Oop, I really need to put the camera away actually, because I need an extra hand for steadying myself on rocks. This is interesting. So this rock is covered in winkles, the little shells, and you can see the little paths they've grazed. So there are algae growing on the surface of this rock, and the winkles have grazed that algae off, and that's their food, and they've left little tracks. Just saw some little fish darting about in this tidal pool. Let's see if we can see them on camera. They're underneath this rock here. If I get on here and rock pooling is the thing we haven't done very much on this channel. Maybe we should take that up. It's a good coastline for rock pooling. This is not the best bit for it. There are better spots than this at Lyme Regis and Kimmeridge. Oh yeah, and we couldn't come here without looking at a piece of Lime Bay agate. Rather a nice bit actually, quite translucent. So there is quite a swell and some waves coming in. The tide is turning now, as I say. So, but yeah, it'll be a while before it comes all the way in. I wouldn't say I necessarily recommend that beach we went to. It's a bit tricky to get to. If you are thinking about coming here, just be very mindful of slippery rocks and rising tides. The tide being the very most important thing. And I don't think it's particularly any better for fossils than Seatown Beach around there, or at least it wasn't today for us. You know, lots of variables in the equation, including the fidelity of our eyes and a fair bit of luck. Again, just a pyrite nodule, but got some really kind of complex shapes and stuff going on that often make these things look like fossils. So that's worth having. I've got to step on some sticky, icky clay here, but there is a beautiful large belemnite, probably only just washed out of the sediments on this tide. That's a lovely specimen. Now that's going to be the prize find of the day, I think. Right, that's it. We are back now on terra kind of firma. What's that? Again, just a concretion made of pyrite. Probably not anything significant. Probably shouldn't be too quick to pick things up that look a little bit like that. Right then, back along Seatown Beach, and isn't it a beautiful day? Now that little bit of fog has lifted, I'm actually thinking about taking off my coat. I've taken off my jumper already that I had on underneath, and I might be down to my shirt sleeves in mid-January. How about that? So yeah, how about this? Down to my shirt sleeves on the 15th of January at Seatown. Although Jenny's still got a coat and a hat and probably a jumper on underneath that. Differential perception of body temperature and ambient temperature, I suppose. Right, I'm going to walk along this bit of flat sand here, a sandy gravel, because there aren't many footprints here, which might mean there's still things to be found. I'm really happy with that belemnite actually. I think that is star find of the day. Very seldom find them as intact or as complete as that. Here's something I spotted, just caught my eye from this distance. Can you see it? I'm going to zoom in on it. I'm not actually zooming in on it, I'm moving the camera. Can you see it yet? That's a little piece of crinoid stem. This is the stuff that I said, if you sit in one place long enough on this beach and sift through these fine gravels, you do find these crinoid stems. Little star-shaped or pentagonal cross-section, segmented sort of look to it. Very, very common on this beach, but always a joy to find just because of the geometric neatness of it. See a piece of ammonite there. Is it going to be complete? No, just a little segment, but it's a pyritized one because it's got that sparkle to it. Fool's gold that's made of. We will, as always, have a little wander along underneath the cliff here, just see if there's anything to find up at this level. Yeah, that's come down quite recently, that greenish looking layer of clay. That's from a section of clay higher up. So you've got the kind of bluish grey clays nearer the bottom, the yellower greeny sandy clays nearer the top. And there is always just more of this to fall down, so we're being careful. What's interesting is that none of the pieces that I talked about in the last video are here anymore. The big chunks of rock, well, they're not really rock, it's more like kind of shale and hardened clay. They're not here anymore. They've been broken apart by the waves and replaced by fresh stuff that's come down. Okay, I do see something here in this bit that's fallen out of the cliff. This here. What is that? Is that a fossil? It's just layers of mud, I think. Yeah, whatever that is not especially durable, because I just had a little scrape at it with a rock, and I think that's just like an imprint in mud. So that would take some very careful preservation if it's even worth preserving. If you know what that was, by the way, do let me know in the comments, and especially if you think I should have taken it home. Actually, I tell a lie. So these are the rocks that we talked about when I was here last time, and they've just been buried by all of this sand that's been washed along. So yeah, I think the beach has been scoured in this direction, leaving a lot more sand and gravel at this end. That's interesting because, as I say, I think the direction of conventional longshore drift is that way, but obviously if you get a storm, you know, anomalous currents and so forth, then anomalous things happen. Kind of good in a way, really, because it means the beach isn't completely getting washed away. So the sea looks flat calm, but Some of these waves do mean business. So just looking back along the beach now, that's where we went, round that corner, over those rocks you see sticking out into the sea, around there. That's where we've been today. So that's probably about it for our visit to Seatown today. We'll head back to Studio Shrimp now to have a look at the finds, and on the way to the car park we'll find a bin for that lot. So over to Studio Shrimp now. So, time for a look at today's finds. And yeah, let's just have a look at this belemnite specimen first. This is by far the largest and most complete belemnite specimen I think I've ever found. It's missing this end, so I think at this end it would have flared out, and that end is very often not preserved. This is the internal skeleton of what would have been a squid-like creature, so swimming in that direction, well, probably actually swimming in both directions because cephalopods can do that kind of thing, but head and tentacles coming out of here. But yeah, as I say, the complete ones will have like a flared, almost like a little trumpet shape on the end there, I think, and that bit there is very, very seldom preserved. I did meet a chap on the beach who'd actually found one where this end was missing, the pointy end was missing, but this end was still preserved in the matrix rock, and you could really see the kind of flare. I wish I'd asked him for a photo of it, but I didn't. In a minute, I'm just going to go and give this a little scrub, because I don't know how much of this rough surface is just clay that's dried on there, and how much of it is actually sedimentary rock, but we'll have a look in a minute anyway. But yeah, I reckon this had only just come out on that tide, so that's a bit of a nice find, that one. Then we've got the kind of usual assortment of sections of ammonite. No complete whorls here, which is a bit of a disappointment. I was hoping to find a complete, or at least an ammonite with several complete whorls, but no, not today. My disappointment is tempered by the fact that was actually a fantastic location. It was a lovely day, actually truly beautiful day out there on the beach. The weather kept on going backwards and forwards from bright sunshine to weirdly low cloud and fog, and actually quite magical being out there on this beach that not many other people get to, and when the weather conditions are just doing weird things all day. It was really quite fun, even though we didn't find the fossil I was hoping we'd find. This little piece of ammonite here you can see is a little bit shiny because that is a pyritized one. This is one that's been infilled with iron pyrite, so that's got a gold sort of sheen to it. So we found a little bit of pyritized ammonite, and this one's still embedded in its matrix rock, but you can perhaps see, well, you can see there's a spiral going out there like that. Several other pieces of belemnite, including that, which I don't know. Some of these that we find in those death plates there, they look too long to be belemnites, but they might just be really long, slender species of belemnite. I don't know. Some of them were just very long for their diameter, and I tend to think that that might be a crinoid stem. Let me know if you've got any insight on that. It might just be a really long, thin, slender belemnite. One little piece of crinoid stem there, this definitely is a piece of crinoid stem, because you can see the pentagonal, well, almost star-shaped cross-section. 4 little pieces of sea glass, which will go into our sea glass collection. And not a fossil, but a 2p coin. Incredibly battered and beaten. But you can just make out the date on there, 1997. I don't imagine that's been on the beach there since 1997, or else it would be probably worn away to nothing by now. But this looks to be a copper-jacketed steel tuppence. You can see the copper has lasted a little bit longer than the steel. It's actually full of rust rather than full of steel there. In fact, we could probably peel that apart, but perhaps I won't. So that was today's finds. As I say, I'm just going to go and wash this now, give it a scrub and see if it cleans up at all. And so the answer to that question is no, not very much. We can just about see perhaps some evidence of surface features here. I don't know if these correspond to anatomical features or if these are just actually remnants of the layers of sediment that got laid over the top of this. It is a little bit of a shame actually. So this outer surface here is kind of grey stone rather than grey clay, so it's not going to scrub off. And it is a little bit of a shame because often the inside of these things is actually translucent quartz or calcite or sometimes opal-like material. But you can kind of see in the middle there's a sort of a structure to it. I don't think we're actually seeing here the remnants of any anatomical features of the animal. There is a kind of slightly radial pattern in here, but I think that's probably coming from the way that the mineralization happened rather than preservation of any anatomical details of the creature. But again, if you know better, let me know. But yeah, quite a nice specimen, that one. And sometimes if you get these when they're more worn away, when they've been tumbled on the beach a bit, they tend to break up into sections, which is a shame. But also it does take off this grey layer on the outside here, and you get a much more sort of polished effect, which is a bit like what we've got here. But you don't find these in such complete condition. So that was today's finds, or at least the ones I brought home. There is still everything to play for on the ammonite hunt, but I think maybe next time we might go to Charmouth and walk in the other direction towards Seatown. So we'd be walking towards the same formations, but on a different beach. So thank you for joining us on our fossil hunt at Seatown today. I hope that's been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.